Before we start our formal program, I just wanted to do our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people who have cared for and stewarded this land since time immemorial. The Ottawa-Gatineau region, where we're hosting this webinar out of, sits within the traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation, whose enduring relationship with the land, waters, plants, and animals continues today. As spring returns to this region and the songbirds come back to the forests and rivers of the Kishisibe watershed, many Anishinaabe teachings remind us that these seasonal cycles carry meaning. The return of the bird signals renewal, balance, and responsibility to listen closely to the land and its rhythms. It is a reminder that we are part of a living system that requires care, respect, and reciprocity. We offer gratitude to the Algonquin people for their stewardship of this territory and recognize their ongoing presence, knowledge, and leadership. May the returning birds invite us to listen, reflect, and act with humility and humanity as we work together toward a more respectful relationship with this land and one another. Throughout today's webinar, please feel welcome to ask questions using the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Okay, and now we're going to move on to our next program. John, next slide. Um, we have a really great agenda set up for today. And this is we're going to have an overview of some home electrification activities and resources and what's happening in Canada. We're going to have three panel presentations from our great panel that we've constructed and members that in the community we work with closely. We'll have a moderated discussion and then some audience Q&A, and then we'll close the session out at 1 p.m. So before we kick things off, we'd like to ask two polling questions. We're sending, they're coming up right now. So the first polling question is, what is the biggest barrier to accelerating whole home residential electrification today? And we want to really get your perspective on here. We have 6 different options: low public awareness and understanding, complexity of decisions for homeowners, cost and affordability concerns, lack of trusted centralized information, and fragmented programs and messaging. So please click on the response that is most relevant to you. We're seeing a lot of cost and affordability is really rising to the top. Low public awareness and understanding, and the complexity of the decision maker. Yeah, we're hearing from Teresa, power grid is a critical limitation. That's a good point. Great. So we got 49 of the 69 if you get your poll number in. But what we're really seeing is cost and affordability concerns, and especially right now in the marketplace, making these kind of capital decisions for homeowners is a tough choice just due to market instability plus cost of technology. So that's still a predominant concern. And we're also seeing complexity of the decisions for homeowners is coming up as the second one. And then we have a tie for low public awareness and understanding and fragmented programs and messaging. Workforce is coming up, and lack of trusted centralized information is kind of coming up at the bottom end. And also, we've had a few things around upgrading panels and grid constraints. Okay, so I think we're going to move to the next polling question.
Yeah, the results for that one are up as well already.
Okay, great. And so the next question right now is what role do you think the consumer awareness plays in achieving electrification at scale? And our four areas. So we've are critical without progress, critical without it, progress will stall. Important but secondary to policy and incentives. Helpful but not a major barrier, not sure. So what we're really seeing here is um, critical without it, progress will stall is kind of our top answer. But we're also seeing important but secondary to policy initiatives as also a high-ranking answer, just right after critical. So that's great. Thanks, everybody. I think now we are going to move to our next slide. Thanks for your feedback. Okay, so we just wanted to go over a kind of an overview of home electrification activities and resources and what's happening in Canada. So if you look at the graphic here, um, while there are many examples of residential electrification from cars to barbecues, heat pumps provide an interesting example. And here on the screen, we can see heat pump shipments. Important to note that it doesn't necessarily mean that more households are installing heat pumps instead of furnaces. One home may need multiple heat pump units to replace a single furnace. The same can be said about air conditioners, as Canada's trends show that roughly 90% of split systems are heat pumps. But that trend flips for central units, with 80 to 90% being air conditioners. But however, the broader trend is towards heat pumps. With the equipment outselling gas furnaces in the US the past 4 years and outselling air conditioners in Canada for the past 3 years. Public data is unavailable for earlier years, unfortunately, and outselling air conditioners in the US for the last 4 months of 2025. So great news. Also, there was another really interesting study that I'll direct you to, is the Clean Energy Canada and Summerhill recently released a study entitled Heat Pump Owners Have Their Say. And they had a couple key data points I wanted to share with you. The first one, and this is one of those myths that lots of people say, like the installs don't go well and people aren't happy with their heat pumps. Well, what we've heard overwhelmingly, Canadian heat pump owners are overwhelmingly happy with their heat pumps. 91% would recommend one to their neighbors. And that's really the kind of channel to market these days is the neighborhood effects. People talking to people who they trust, getting advice, and then making an install. So good news there. And then the top three motivating factors for choosing a heat pump. This I found quite interesting. 40% said lower energy bills. That really talks to affordability and the business case. And while we don't see a fantastic business case across every jurisdiction in Canada, there are some jurisdictions where it really makes sense. Um, Air conditioning or other comfort benefits. So they likely installed a unit because they didn't have air conditioning, and now with a heat pump, they do have cooling. John has just posted a link to the Clean Energy Canada and Summerhill report if you'd like to have a look at it in more detail. And the final one is so lower energy bills, 40% polled. Air conditioning and other comfort benefits, 26 responded yes, and then better for the environment with 18%. So the leading thing isn't GHG emission reduction. The leading thing is lower energy bills, affordability, and comfort benefits, and air conditioning. Next slide. Okay. So, John, just to note, we did get a comment in there that slides aren't advancing, but maybe they thought we were doing a clean energy slide, but we were still on the graphic slide, and now we're to the presenter side. And it's my honor to present the following three panelists. The first one is Heather McDermott. is a senior advisor with the Building Decarbonization Alliance and founder of McDermott Consulting. She specializes in research, analysis, and communications work related to advancing electrotech in the residential sector. Recent work includes a report highlighting the need for better heating system sizing in Canada, a compilation of a home electrification toolkit for Canadians, and an analysis of the emissions and costs impacts of adopting heat pumps in British Columbia. When not working to build a climate-safe future, she enjoys hanging out with her family, biking, kayaking, and playing the oboe. Um, our second panelist is Chris Taggart, and he helped establish Electrify 613, an Ottawa-based initiative helping homeowners navigate the transition to electric homes through peer-to-peer learning and community support. Through an active online discussion group and local engagement, Chris has built a trusted space where homeowners and experts share real-world experience, advice, and practical guidance on home electrification. His work demonstrates the power of community-led approaches to move people from curiosity to action and highlights the role of local networks in accelerating adoption. If you haven't visited Electrify 613 and you're working in this space, you really should. Um, uh, it's um, it's a fantastic resource. And our third panelist is Sarah. Um, uh, she is an innovative strategist, leader, creative communicator, and original marketeer with deep community engagement bona fides. A builder of ideas and organizations and experiences, she creates through the lens of human behavior and talks about heat pumps a little too much, which I love because I like talking about heat pumps too much. And she's a big fan of large cookies. Sarah's currently working with the Building Decarbonization Alliance to help launch Electric Living. She worked for 15 years as a journalist, illustrator, freelance animator, filmmaker, wrote, designed, and strategized for clients including David Suzuki Foundation, Maclean's, Toronto Stars, the Globe and Mail, National Post, Shaw Media, the Boston Globe, Slack, The Walrus, and others. Made movies for the National Film Board of Canada, directed a feature, launched Torontoist.com and The Hour with George Stroumboulopoulos, wrote a book on consumerism, designed the first kids brand for the Toronto Public Library, taught at Humber College, and ate a lot of cookies. What a great panelist. Very excited for their talks. And first up is Heather. So I will pass the baton over to you, Heather. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Stephen. So, as Stephen noted earlier, I'm the one who put together this Canada's Home Electrification Toolkit. Um, and you can find that on the Building Decarbonization Alliance's website. We'll put a link to that in a couple of slides. The purpose of this toolkit is to really put the power in people's hands to help them to make their homes better through electrical appliances. It's gives an overview of a whole bunch of electrification options, which is not a substitute for product-specific research, but it certainly is that helps people with that first step of understanding what are the things that I can choose from, and what are some of the things that I want to consider as I'm looking at my options. So we're really targeting homeowners, but also renters who are looking to improve their home spaces. We're also targeting community groups and municipalities that are looking to develop programs to advance residential electrification. Next slide, please. So it covers just about everything you can imagine that you can electrify in and around a home. So, obviously space heating and heat pumps because they're awesome, but also things like EV chargers and cooking and lawnmowers, snow blowers, solar panels, and electrical panels are coming up a lot in the chat. I'm seeing there's a whole section on electrical panels, what you need to consider and how you can avoid doing that electrical panel upgrade, energy management systems that can help that avoid that electrical panel upgrade. So everything in and around the home that can get electrified is covered in this toolkit. And the way we cover it is just quickly at a glance information. People who just want give me the short time version is how we start. We go through the various options available, the benefits, but also the challenges and other things that you might want to consider as you're making your decision. And for those big ticket items, the heat pumps, the water heaters, and the solar, we also give some suggested questions for installers. So it really is providing that support system for homeowners in making decisions. Next slide. So it's got great graphics throughout. You've seen some of the graphics from the title page, and this is an example from the dryer. For each type of equipment, we cover relative upfront and operational costs. The operational costs we update every 6 months so that they remain current. We include information about equipment lifespan so that when homeowners are looking to plan out their electrification journey, they know roughly when they'll need to budget for replacing their dryer, for example. The electrical needs so they can start planning ahead and thinking. Whether you can do this yourself or you need an installer. The energy and the emissions impact, and again, these are updated regularly. Benefits and challenges, as noted before, other considerations, and those questions to ask installers. So it's pretty comprehensive. Next slide, please. And the other aspect of this that I think is really exciting is the whole toolkit and all of its content, either as a whole or as individual chapters for different equipment, is available as a white label product. And that means that other organizations can get access to this toolkit, add their logo and their colors to the document, really take ownership of it. They can post it on their websites to increase traffic to their websites, draw more people in. They can, as I mentioned, all content are just a single chapter, but it can help to build an organization's reputation as a trusted partner on the electrification journey. And the logo down here will take you straight to the page where you can see the content of the toolkit and also the instructions on how to make use of that white label product. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. That was great. I'm going through the process of electrifying my home right now as we speak, and in advance of that, I really leveraged off of the home electrification toolkit, but also someone who's on the call today, and Michelle Hort from Energy Neighbor, which provides local on the ground support on a variety of helping me through the process of decision making for the complexity that's involved in these kind of new systems. So if you have any questions about Energy Neighbor in Toronto, please ping Michelle Hort on the call today. But linked to that, another local resource is Electrify 613. And now I'll pass it over to Chris.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, Chris sort of co-founded Electrify 613, and so we're basically a community support group to help people on the electrification journey. Next slide, please. So started this back in around 2021, and we sort of approached the the problem from three perspectives. One is sort of online, also following up with in-person events and things, and then third one is just sort of trying to start the flywheel around accelerating and scaling and getting more excitement around home electrification. Thanks. Like I said, started in 2021 with a friend, Aaron Sedanker. I think he's on this call, and basically spun out of us trying to go do our own home electrification projects, doing deep dives into all this, all this stuff, and then being like, I shouldn't have to learn about this much. I shouldn't have to know about heat pumps to this degree and building science in order to just do the right thing and electrify my home. So we started this Slack channel as just sort of a way to hang out and trade resources, and invited some other people in to join. So as of last week, we got 680 members in the Slack group. A lot of people just drop in, get their advice, and leave, which is great, or they'll come back, and some people hang out and continue to provide advice. We started it sort of back when home electrification is a pretty much unfamiliar territory for most people. Heat pumps were pretty new. Navigating rebates was it can be confusing or sorry, incentives are confusing. And then homeowners need like a trusted neighbor level uh, place to get advice and second opinions because it's hard to trust the person at the door. And there's not a lot of other places to go to trust, right? Trust is a thing that you sort of uh, people don't, you know, give out willingly. Anyway, next slide. So basically, we started this group as a thing, and then sort of like, how do we make the right thing, which is building decarbonization, sort of the easy thing, right? And right now, it's a hard thing. It's not as easy as it should be, and it should just be like, hey, I want to call somebody up. I need a heat pump. They're like, yep, here's your heat pump. You don't have to do all sorts of crazy things. How do we make it easy? And so everything we do within the group sort of spins out of ideas of friction that we've noticed people encountering, and how do we build tools and outreach and things around that. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so online. So the core bit is this 24/7 online Slack community. Mostly, we started this during the pandemic, so people were online a lot. Folks are probably already in work Slack groups in a lot of cases, so we're already there. People are already there. It made sense to sort of start there. And the nice benefit there is that it's kind of 24/7, right? If I'm online, someone posts a question, I can see it on my phone, I can answer it if I'm able to. And I think that's one of the differentiators from like more formal concierge programs where it's during sort of business hours, operating hours. A lot of times it's like, oh, I got the kids put to bed. I can finally think about this furnace that's going to die. Your sort of, your more formal programs aren't generally available at those times. And so this is like where we meet people where they are at, times when they're thinking about that stuff, when they're Googling and looking for stuff. We were kind of there and we can answer in real time. Next slide. And so one of the things we built a site, or I built a site out a couple years ago. We wrote all of our own guides, and then we were actually launched Electrify 705 a couple months ago, or I guess January. Sort of getting that off the ground. So some folks in Peterborough, and we were like, hey, these guides probably need an update. And writing a whole bunch of guide content is not really my wheelhouse. I could do it, but it's just like it's a lot, and it was fun. And then I knew about the BDA toolkit, and I was like, hey, wait a second, this is a great resource. This is like basically everything we want to share on the website. It's in a PDF, so I went through the fun process of adapting that to the web. And so now we have integrated BDA electrification toolkit content on the site, and it's syndicated across both Electrify 613 and Electrify 705. And so that content is available. Happy to share that if anybody's wants to not have to do what I did and prep that content for the web. But yeah, it's all there. There's still, if you check out the site, there's probably a couple places we're updating illustrations and things still, but the bulk of it should be in there. Next slide. Like I said, the other thing we added to the site was syndicated FAQs across sites. So sites can set up their own. So Electrify 705 can have their own FAQs. We have our own FAQs. You can share them across the site. You can share this content across the site in one place. So anyone on the platform can leverage all of that, the shared core data, and then on top of that, have their own custom stuff it's like locale specific. Next slide. The other thing we offer are real case studies. So homeowners through the group that we've have gone through their journeys, electrify their homes. They can share those resources and their progress along that journey, and sort of where they're at and then where they're going, which is cool for people to watch people go through that progress and find a home that's similar to theirs. Next slide. The other thing we just recently added to is one of the big gaps we saw was, okay, I learned about a heat pump. The group helped me size my heat pump. I know it's going to fit on my panel using our panel sizing tools. Now I have to go like track down a bunch of contractors and find the good ones and then email them all separately. And so we try to close that gap a little bit. We take community recommended contractors that people have said had good experiences through the group, throw them into this thing, and you can basically trigger a single email with all your details off to your choice of local contractors. And this again is also localized to any of the sites on the platform. So Electrify 705 is going to have their own mix of local contractors people can connect with in one click, and that just kicks off the process. It doesn't automate anything, but it just gets people started and removes one more bit of friction. And the last sort of thing we're playing around now is built an electrification chatbot. And so we look at it's basically built on top of all the BDA content for the electrification toolkit, any of the site FAQs, any of the site pages for each of those locales. It can answer any questions about any of that data, and we can feed it all sorts of other things, Enercan, docs, or incentive FAQs, all the things. So it's probably rolling that out later this month. And the other thing I almost forgot, we started doing a spring group buy through the group, so we built out some automated tools to consolidate all the information gathering we need to do a group buy. So pulling in your panel data, panel photos, gas usage, electricity usage, and all those things that you need to make a decision on around sizing. And so we've kind of built some tools around that. And then finally, sort of the in-person, not finally, I'll try to speed it up here. We've done in-person events. We've done heat pump crawls, heat pumps and pints. And then also built tools around organizing those heat pump crawls to make that easier because it's a lot of work. And so we've consolidated, rolled that down into an easy to use tool that handles registration, emailing all the attendees, and then sending them their starting points if people are starting at different houses for different heat pump crawls. Going on that. And then the last piece is started the flywheel, sort of reinforcing that stuff with fun things. We've done, stickers, merch, signs are a really good thing. So any of the homes that people can opt in, get a sign, we drop on their lawn, and their neighbors can either bug them or join the group directly. And those have been pretty effective in terms of the grassroots bottom up stuff. Yeah, and so this is one illustration I came up with a while back, which was just, we saw in the group, all the marketing programs, all the incentives, all the comms, people were like, oh, cool, I need a heat pump. And those silos kind of generally would operate independently. And then the people have to somehow land on the ground and actually install their heat pump, electrify their home, get rid of their gas, hot water tank, and so on. And so we're trying to be the parachute in that scenario. HVAC contractors is a big sort of cliff you could get stuck on. Program complexity, not getting rebates on various timelines and things. Those were things that we got to experience in the group. So we really soaked in the homeowner experience, and then try to figure out ways to be that parachute. And yeah, if any questions, that's my details. Happy to chat more. Reach out.
Chris, it's just outstanding. The resources that you're providing to your community, it's so great. The Slack feature, the chat bot, the quoting feature, just so many very useful resources to help homeowners through the process. So I'm sure you're providing a great service to the Ottawa community. A lot of great ideas out there for other communities across Canada to think about, ponder, emulate, pilfer. And call Chris if if you need some guidance trying to set up your community's support system for heat pumps. Thank you, Chris. And now we'll pass the mic off to Sarah.
Thanks, everyone. What Stephen said about Chris, just an invaluable pile of great resources done with, to answer Tom's question a bit without speaking out of turn, I think fairly minimal budget. So amazing work. Which brings me to this campaign and something Chris said as well, which is in an ideal world, this campaign would not have to exist because electrification would be easy. And by easy, I mean normative. You would just get the electric thing because it would be the default and you would be able. Yes, Michael, that is a heat pump costume. Wait, I don't have my screen turned on, but I'll put it on. I'll put it on when I have more time. Yes, the goal is to, now I'm off track, make electrification the default so that it's easier and de-frictioned for everybody who wants to make these choices in their lives, whether they're consciously doing that or just picking the best thing on the market, which we all know is the electric machine. So what is electric living? Well, we've been researching and meeting with folks across the country to see how we could, to Chris's point, broaden the funnel and make more people aware of electrification. Next slide. So right now, we lack that sort of unified, overarching, trusted messenger campaign. There's people doing great work in pieces and parts of the country, and there's a ton of momentum building. More and more people know how wonderful this stuff is, and once you put on the heat pump costume, you don't take it off, and you're the person who tells your neighbor, how great your induction stove or EV is. But this stuff is still really hard to navigate, even for people who are deep in the mix. Next slide. So we are building a national public-facing awareness campaign to advance electric uptake collaboratively. What do I mean by that? Next slide, John. We're going to work with folks who you've already seen, Chris and others, to really use the resources that already exist across the country and come together to make sure that the other pockets of the country to, I forget your names, question, how can we have this in BC? How can we have this in other places? Well, how can we scale up the tool set so that folks across the country have access to these resources so the process can be easy for them? How can we supply best-in-class research and data to everybody in all the ways they need? And then how can we have that overarching brand umbrella that, makes folks see the thing and immediately know that this information or this marketing or these commercials have been vetted, and the messaging that you are absorbing has that brand halo of, I know this is good information. Next slide. Okay, so we're doing three things. Measurably raise awareness and desire. We spoke to the Clean Energy Canada study that just came out, which awesomely reports that, unsurprisingly, 92% of people are very happy with their heat pumps. They also did some great research a couple months ago, which showed that not a lot of people know that heat pumps both heat and cool your homes. Like, we still have basic stuff to do when it comes to messaging electrification, what it is, what these things are, so that people don't make the unfortunate choice when, their next machine breaks, because as we all know, that is, planting another gas furnace for 10 to 20 years of, fuel-borne, which we just can't have. So we have to measurably raise awareness and inspire people to want these beautiful things. We also have to drive meaningful implementation. It's no good if people just want these things, but they're not planting those heat pumps in the ground. So we have to help and make it easier for contractors to be connected to homeowners, make it easier for us to scale up the amazing resources on this call, people like Michelle, who are able to help folks implement, because we know that that's where a lot of the friction exists. You want a heat pump, but then you call your contractor and they say, actually, you don't want one, and then there's too many forms to navigate, and then you just kind of forget about it, install the high efficiency gas furnace. And then finally, and something people might not really think about, we really need to build that durable advocacy base. Once you get an EV, you are an advocate for EVs because you don't want to wait in line to charge your EV on your next big road trip. And so that advocacy base is really key, because we also have to maintain and advance electrification so that the stuff keeps working for everybody, and so that we make it better and better and better as we go. So, and also because electrification is still the purview of the wealthy right now. I mean, in some cases of the country, it makes a heck of a lot of good financial sense to electrify, but what if you can't electrify but want to support this work? There should be great advocacy work that you can do, even if you're a renter who, can't afford or can't convince your landlord for fear of rent eviction to, swap out all your gas machines. Okay, next slide. And so to do that, we need messengers of all kinds. I don't have his permission, but I love this still of Maddie Matheson cooking on an induction hot plate, because this is gateway electrification at its finest. You can boil your water in 90 seconds. How great is that? We need to normalize this stuff and show the people that create the media all around us using electric goods in their lives. Next slide. We need to advance electrification education in really novel ways. I'm going to hazard a guess that a lot of people on this call would love to read Heather's amazing toolkit, or, join Chris's Slack for the next tranche of people who may not be those early adopters or net zero energy dads, whatever you want to call them. We have to make this some informational, more of a party, more fun. Tonight, this is a dinner I'm convening to help some lifestyle editors and folks who might not otherwise even know what climate change or electrification, for that matter, is, kind of embrace this stuff in new ways, because we know they're the folks who are going to put out the content that everyone around us consumes. And the electrification has to be accessible for all in all the ways. Next slide. And then finally, electrification happens at home. We can make excellent tools. Chris can build you all the widgets. I can have all the Maddie Mathesons do the work, but you ultimately don't usually make that last mile decision until you ask your neighbor if you like the thing that they've got, because these are expensive decisions that we hope you only have to make once every 15, 20 years. And so, we do our best as a group and we build all the tools so that everyone can avail themselves of the best information and have zero friction. And then finally, we need people to engage with folks in their homes and communities so that when you're at the park, your neighbor says, yes, I do love my induction stove and you should absolutely get one. And so this is a dorky thing that I started a couple years ago called heat pump parties, wherein everybody comes over and eats my terrible baked goods and learns more about installing heat pumps. Next slide. And yeah, here's just some of the tools, what we have coming. We're helping to launch our newsletter soon, so get in touch. And with luck, we'll be launching our campaign in a few months after that. Okay, back to you, Stephen. Thanks, everybody. These are slides for later. Bonus.
John, we'll go right to thank you, the Q&A slide. So I'm going to ask a few questions for the panelists, and thank you, panelists, and thank you, Sarah, for that electrifying electric living presentation. I'm obsessed with the brand, and Sarah, Heather, and Chris are such great advocates for heat pumps in Canada, and a pleasure to work with. So got a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So for Heather, you're up first. Heather, you led the development of the home electrification toolkit. Based on that experience, where do homeowners still get stuck? And how can a platform like Electric Living help bridge that gap between understanding and actually taking action?
Thanks, Chris. So I thought a bit about this and I got down to 4 barriers. So have patience as I get through them. The first one is most Canadians don't know that they can get better equipment when they go electric. So we need, and I think Sarah's doing a great start at building this. We need to make electrification sexy and fun and interesting so that when people's existing equipment dies, they're ready to go electric. So that's number one. Number two, when they're ready to go electric, it has to be easy. And right now, too many people find it's not the easy option. Installers, retailers, and others just haven't gotten the memo yet that electric is the best way to go. So access is the second barrier. Third one is that electrical panel that keeps coming up. And that is because both homeowners, and it really shouldn't be on the shoulders of homeowners, but installers and many other in the field don't know about the options to avoid the electrical panel upgrade. And quite frankly, this is just way too technical for an average homeowner to navigate. So it really has to be the industry has to proactively help homeowners avoid this upgrade. But until that happens, homeowners need good information to give them the confidence to advocate for alternatives themselves. So, electrical panels is the third one. And then the fourth one, and that was really alluded to in those questions that we got at the very outset, upfront cost is still a barrier. And I think many homeowners would be willing to pay a bit more for better products, especially when it gives costs less to operate, but they need to have the confidence that the products are worth the extra cost. And where I think people need to build this confidence is with conversations with friends and families, because they are the trusted source of information. We need to mobilize and empower those people who are early adopters to talk about it, to have heat pump parties, as Sarah showed, to have organize those Slack channels, as Chris has done, to share their stories. For example, I don't know anyone who has an induction stove that would ever go back to anything else. And they absolutely are more expensive upfront, but they are so much better. So how do we get these people talking about their stoves and how much better they are in everyday conversations? And I think all the things that we're talking about today are moving the needle forward, but we need more of it. So four barriers: knowledge, access, electrical panels, and the upfront cost barrier. Um,
Great.
so
Thanks,
just,
Heather.
yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I think very thoughtful response to that question. As a homeowner going through the process myself, I've experienced all four of them. Felt very fortunate to have the BDA's home electrification toolkit that you built in my back pocket to support me through some of the decision making, and also to have a local expert like Energy Neighbor Michelle to hold my hand through some of the kind of bigger decisions I had to make. So all those things helped me get over the barriers and make decisions and plant my heat pump down, which is going to be happening in May. So very excited to report back on that. Um, and I think too, the interesting thing too is that I think most homeowners look at the capital spend, not the operational spend over the 15, 20-year lifespan of the product, which is an issue because when you do kind of a 15, 20-year amortization with operational spend in there, that means your electricity bill, anticipated bill usage versus and the removal of natural gas from your property or reduced usage of natural gas. When you look at that over the term of the life of the heat pump, the business case gets much better. So for my second question, it's for you, Chris. Through Electrify 613, you've built a community where homeowners are learning from each other and from local experts. What have you seen about the role of a trusted local network in moving people from heat pump curious to making real upgrades?
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the biggest piece has just been um, people just need that extra little that comfort and that safety and that push from somebody. It is more expensive up front. Gas is, at least in Ontario, generally still like from a pure cost perspective, it's cheaper. So those are hard things, and they want to do the right thing. And so a lot of people that join the group, they just want it's fine. You're going to be okay. No one's freezing. Like the contractor that shows up at your house isn't, that says that it's not you can't install a heat pump. It's like that's they just need support really. And so it's a safety net. It's other people have taken have done this, and it's just building that community, um, and just growing, more community connections in their existing communities, right? Um, it's community building at some level, and those communities, spin off, and can do other things as those sort of grow. Um, and so, yeah, I think the key thing is just giving people the confidence, to do the thing that they want to do, but they're just being told in a lot of places, you don't want to do this, or this is too hard. You should just do the easier thing, right? And so it's just, really at the end of the day, it's the support piece. I think is the biggest. Yeah.
Do Chris, do you think the one issue we've been hearing a lot in the marketplace is that the contractors and installers are part of the problem these days, especially the more legacy ones that because as a homeowner, my first play if anything happens with my furnace or air conditioner, I call my HVAC management company or supplier to help me out. And most of the times, I trust them as an expert in the field. But then when it comes to heat pumps, I'm not getting the right advice. Is there a barrier there in the contractor installer world that
Totally.
they're not,
Um,
getting the memo quite yet?
Yeah, and there are some. I mean, so that was the biggest thing we found is we would go into the group or people would come in. We are like, here's your heat pump sizing, here's your panel sizing. Like you're good to go. Go get 3 quotes, and they would come back and be like, well, these 2 people told me like I can't do this.
Don't
So we
do
were
it.
like, I guess we have to start a heat pump company. So we've actually spun out Fern Comfort to do direct installs as a full-on electrification concierge type service, right? We look at that journey holistically, and then we work with like local installer partners to actually do those installs. And so we yeah, kind of got into that thing, soaked in that, okay. And from that same perspective, like what are those HVAC installer challenges where they're not, getting there, and the ones we partner with obviously have been. But I've talked to folks that have worked at other HVAC companies, and a lot of those salespeople, he was like, I worked there, didn't get any training on heat pump sizing, panel sizing. They literally are just trying to hit quotas for certain equipment at certain companies, right? So yeah, it's a mix out there, and so we're just trying to solve solve for that friction like any way we can.
Yeah, yeah, agree. I know before I started working with Energy Neighbor, the contractors that I had come quoting in before, one would not specify cold climate air source heat pump at all. They were all trying to push me to a hybrid system, which I didn't, that's not what I was asking for. And then Energy Neighbor helped me through the processes. I'm sure you've helped many of your in your network as well through that. Sarah, my next question is for you. Your work has focused on making electrification clear, compelling, and even joyful, I would argue. What have you learned about how to translate something technical into a story that actually resonates with people and drives demand?
Yeah, John, if it's not too much of a pain, I actually have a slide to speak to this topic a bit. It's less about, I think making complex things understandable is table stakes in these days of communications. We have to do it at the very least, but it is finding the thing that is going to resonate with people. If you go back one slide, John, I think a lot of times we lead immediately with what we think are the benefits. And this was a framework I had developed at my old nonprofit, Rewiring America. When it comes to my induction stove, why did I actually get an induction stove? Yes, I am a climate person. I've worked in climate for almost 20 years. I didn't get my induction stove because of climate. I got it because I wanted the cleanliness of a home that wouldn't give my child asthma. And so I think what we need to be always thinking about is audience and messaging and making sure that we're actually selling people the thing that they're interested in and getting people excited about the solution that most excites them. Climate is usually the second or third concern, always there. Almost 80% of Canadians want their governments to take action on climate, but really, does someone want greater control over their home's energy? Does someone want better comfort because right now they don't have a lot of thermal comfort in their home? Does someone want, their community to have better air quality? It really depends on who you're talking to. So I think my number one thing is to really make it be joyful. You have to solve something for people that makes their life better. That's what gives people joy. And to help this idea of electrification resonate, we have to speak to people in ways that land with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Is that a picture of your son,
That's my
Sarah?
son. I never ask his permission. I keep forgetting. But
So
he used to
cute.
have asthma. Then we got an induction stove, and it's a sample size of one, but he doesn't cough anymore. So
Yeah.
that for me supersedes any other climate reason why I would electrify my home. But I'm glad. I'm glad
Yeah,
I did.
you said something interesting too. I saw you on a stage once that really helped me put it into perspective. Like your furnace and your stove and your maybe your dryer that are based off of like natural gas. It's actually like it's a fire in your home, which has pollutants.
Yeah, I think that's
And
really salient for people. I
yeah,
mean, I didn't think about it. I worked in, waste reduction and circularity and consumerism for many years, and I never thought about these machines in my house that were actually little fossil fuel plants. My friend, the great climate policy analyst Leah Stokes, she says, think of it as five little mini fossil fuel plants in your home. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Like a gas furnace is burning in your home, and it's
yeah.
really unsafe. So if people care about safety, that can be really resonant, even if the climate reason is not the one that motivates them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Ever since because I know in the States a big push for induction and electricity has been around the health and pollutants inside the house, and it's really resonated quite strongly in the U.S. market, and I think it's happening here in Canada as well. But health is a big motivator for people's homes, having a healthy home. So it's a great way to message. Okay, so now I'm going to have a rapid fire across the panel on what success looks like at scale. So I just want everybody to give all the panelists to have a quick thing, and then we're going to open it up to a question on the floor. Um, Actually, we have a Q&A. Before I do that, sorry. We do, oh, all the questions have been answered. You, Heather, you got that question on challenging areas for homeowners. I just wanted you to quickly talk about it. Are there areas in existing kind of homes that are still really challenging to electrify? Like, for example, if they've got a RAD, like an air to water system or a RAD system. Can you just quickly comment on that from the Q&A?
Well, I think you identified the one major difficult one, the homes that use radiators for heating require an air to water heat pump, which is a thing and it does exist. It's just, and I should also point out that in Europe, the air to water heat pumps are becoming very common and popular, but they're not widely available here yet. And when they are available, they're expensive. And sometimes homeowners need to upgrade the radiators as well as installing a new heating system. So there's still a few barriers if people are moving from a radiator-based system to a heat pump. Extra cost, is never a good news. But that's the main one that I'm aware of. If anybody else is aware of any, let us know.
Yeah. Please put it in the chat. Okay, so now our rapid fire. What success looks like at scale? If electric living succeeds, our concept, if we have a trusted national platform that's locally relevant and widely used, what would be different in Canada's electrification landscape 5 years from now? And maybe I'll start with you, Chris, then go to Heather, and then Sarah to close it off.
Sure, thanks. I mean, hopefully, like a drastic reduction in emissions would be great. Stronger, healthier communities, right? This is all around like community building on the other side, and then I think also like combined with maybe some of the inertia we're sort of seeing around plug-in balcony solar, right? Like that, there seems to be some movement there. So maybe like a true acceleration of the energy the transition, right? And sort of a new electric renaissance. I would say, yeah.
Amazing. Heather?
Yeah, sorry. I think electric options will just become the default. Is a why people will just be upgrading to what is better, and that will be simple and easy when people will do it without thinking.
Thanks, Heather. Sarah? Or someone who's been working on this, all of you have been working on it a long time, but I know you've been working on it a really long time.
I think everyone has.
Everyone has.
Heather had one great answer, but I think I would add to it, we could electrify the world and not do it equitably and still have a really unfair Canada. I would love it for it to become the default and people to hand raise for electrification and contractors to install electric machines. But in an ideal world, we do all that, but we also do it equitably so that the people who can't afford to electrify right now have incentives and rebates to help them do so. And so it's across the board because I think what we risk is fancy people buy EVs because they are every day the absolutely better choice. Induction stoves are incredible. And then a select few Canadians benefit where the other people still suffer. So the default, but the default for everybody, the expression at my old org coined by the genius Saul Griffin was electrify everything. And I added electrify everything for everyone everywhere, which is way more cumbersome. But if we don't do it for everyone, if we don't do it everywhere, then we don't win.
That's an important message. Thank you, Sarah. So we're gonna do, we've got a little bit of very small time for Q&A. Is anybody interested in asking a live question? Or posting it in the Q&A chat?
Yeah, there was one question, and I know you guys panelists can't respond in the chat, but there's one question from Michael, which is a little different. It's not as much residential, but it relates to freezing condensate for like skating rinks and other things like that. So he's just curious to see if there's any ways of dealing with that.
We have one that tends to work pretty well in Ottawa. Is just people have a sled. It's like a $10 Canadian Tire sled that they just stick under their stand, and then if it gets too icy every once a month or whatever, they'll just go over and like smooth the sled and dump the ices. Uh, we've also looked at, some people have done heating mats, which is kind of a pain, and you're just like, you have those kind of turn on at certain thresholds. But yeah, the sled thing is super easy. Has seemed to have resolved it for not a lot of effort.
The other one I've seen is that some of the units are now coming with a battery pack underneath to help deal with peak shaving as well. So you get your air source heat pump, but it sits on a battery pack, and that the heat from that also helps deal with some of that condensate. So those were the only other questions that were listed in the chat, but I'll pass it back over to you, Stephen, for closing.
All right, and we have one final polling question. So on the next slide. After hearing today's discussion, where do you see the most valuable role for electric living? Please pick one. I think you should still have the QR code that John provided.
Yeah, I made a mistake and started with that poll, so I have to reopen it. Just give me one second. There we go.
Okay, question 3. And so, where do you see the most value for electric living? And we've got increasing public awareness and demand for electrification, helping households navigate programs, incentives, and decisions, supporting local organizations and community-based implementation, dispelling myths associated with building electrification, aligning messaging and coordinating across the ecosystem, and building long-term public support and advocacy for electrification. Great. We're really seeing increasing public awareness and demand for electrification as kind of a high priority coming up. Next one is aligning messaging and coordinating. But we're really seeing our top answer coming up, increasing public awareness and demand for electrification is kind of our top answer. But this has been great. And I just wanted to, we are at 1 o'clock right now, and I want to respect your calendars and time just before a long weekend holiday for most people. And I wanted to thank all of our panelists, Heather, Chris, Sarah. Thank you so much for your wisdom and guidance today through the discussion. The work that you guys are doing will no doubt have an effect on scaling heat pump adoption in Canada. The BDA is committed to being Canada's voice for building electrification, and we are working actively to prioritize, reframing the economic narrative, aligning the policy world across federal, provincial, municipal governments, making home electrification the default no regrets choice, and working with commercial buildings and the finance community to help scale up electrification in buildings across Canada. We are dedicated to this. Stay tuned. We'll be having another webinar in the next quarter. Thank you for all taking time out of your day to join us on this call. And we'll be in touch soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you.